And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
So today, folks, we're taking a look at the Chains That Rust. This is a new expansion for Descent Journeys in the Dark, the second edition of Descent. It's a fantastic game. I love it. One of my favorite games, so I'm always very eager. And this one has more monsters. This one introduces fear. Ooh. But what this one introduces mostly, or the coolest thing, is multi-class. Well, not really, kind of. I'll show you. So there's a lot of new terrain pieces in here, and that's because in this book there's another entire campaign. You can mix it with the original campaign or just run a small campaign if you want to. This is not one of the maps. This is just a bunch of mixed up stuff that I put together to show you all the pieces. There's new terrain here. You can see this is sludge, which is kind of like water, except when you leave it, you have it's harder for hit points. And we also got some walls, crumbling, and some crumbling terrain. But let's also, I want to talk about the bad guys, because that's usually, as an Overlord person, that's usually what I'm most interested in. First of all, we have a new class called the Soulbinder. Now this is really fascinating to me because the Soulbinder comes, and this is probably my favorite class so far of the Overlord, with a Scourge. He's like a servant. This is very similar to one of the hero classes who came with like their own familiars and golems and stuff, but you have this Scourge servant who's walking around, and these different cards are placed in front of you. And so, for example, this event here, play this card on one servant at the end of your turn and keep this card in your play area. That servant gets +2 to speed while it's in your play area. So that's pretty neat. And so there's different things that will do something. Play when this card, when a hero is adjacent to a servant, declares an attack. That hero has to make a test. If he passes, he loses 2 fatigue, but if he fails, he's terrified. And I guess this is probably a good point. There's a new status, Terrified, which does not let you spend fatigue, and you can only get rid of it when there's no enemies nearby you. So that's Terrified is going to have a lot of things to do with this game. So the Soulbinder is all about using this servant. Here's people in line of the servant are going to take damage. This one here, you can trace a path of 4 spaces, starting in a space adjacent to that servant. Each hero on that path suffers fatigue up to their stamina. Then move that servant, each of those heroes, up to 3 spaces. So just some really, I don't know, I just really like the idea of the bad guy having a servant. And there's also some new lieutenants in here that you're going to run into. Some nasty people who will have to do with fear. And then there are some new bad guys. So we'll start with the Marrow Priest here. Now the Marrow Priest is one of the few villains, in fact, they may be the first, I have to go back and check, where there's only one of the white version of that, but they have Shadow Step, Mortal Binding, and they can do extra damage. The Shadow Step basically means that the hero has to spend a fatigue, otherwise this guy can run 5 spaces after the attack, so they can kind of run away. But they also can Mortal Bind someone, and you put a hero token on a card, and if I have a hero token of yours on this card, you can't heal till you get rid of that. Then we have the Dispossessed. That's these guys, which are really cool. I like to see these painted, actually, where the model is basically just a bunch of skulls that are zooming around. And these have Ethereal Hold, where here you can put tokens on you, and then you can get rid of those and to jump near a hero. So essentially, you can chase down a hero, and these guys also have the ability to terrify. And then finally, we have the Shambling Colossus. This is a big bad guy who is going to be rolling a red and blue attack, uses the black die for defense, has some nice hit points, and they're harrowing. Anyone who's nearby them has a chance to be terrified, but they also have Puncture, which basically means they ignore 1 shield, so almost piercing that they're going to have. So those are the new monsters that are included. There's also some more equipment and stuff where the heroes can terrify monsters, and just I'm always glad to get more. Look at the Lightning Javelin. Each of your attacks gets +X range, where this range is equal to one of your skills, and it can stun and things, a Bone Wand and things like that. And then if you haven't seen these before, you can play with these in this campaign. These here are what are called tainted cards. They give you +2 health, but the first time you're knocked out, they flip over and they will do something negative to you. You can combine them. Now, the thing that's most interesting about this setup are hybrid classes. We have the Watchman, the Battle Mage, the Monk, and the Steelcaster. Let's take a closer look at these. So let's say I'm using Lord Hawthorne here, and Lord Hawthorne normally has to take some sort of melee. So he picks Steelcaster. This is one of the new ones here. And instead it says when you gain this card, choose a class deck belonging to the Mage archetype. So instead of picking, Warrior or whatever, I'm going to pick Prophet. So Lord Hawthorne now is a Prophet, and so I would take the Iron Flail and the Sage's Tome, and when I pick points, I can buy skills from the Prophet deck, except I can never do the level 3 ones, which are pretty cool. I can't take Focused Insights or Omniscience, but I can take any of the other ones. But I can also take ones from the Rune Guard. So I got Rune Grafting and Shield Mage and Iron Blocked, and you can see there's actually a lot of text on these. So each of the new classes from this set will do the same thing. The Battle Mage basically lets you, someone from the Mage category can take a Warrior archetype. The Monk is going to let someone take something from the Healer archetype, and the Watchman is going to let a Healer take something from the Scout archetype. So each of these is going to let you do different things, but they each have their own sort of, benefits too. Like the Rune Mage, or the Battle Mage, has things that he can do with runes. The Trailblazer here, the Watchman here, during the travel step, gets extra stuff on tests. And so these are neat, but they're cool because if I'm like Lord Hawthorne, I've always wanted to have him be kind of a healer or whatever, then you can do that. And I think that's kind of a cool combo. And these are my favorite things from this new expansion. So it's really not multi-class, I guess. It's kind of cross-class. But what this does is it lets you sometimes you're like, oh, I really want to use this hero, but I didn't want to be a healer. Well, now you can. And these kind of cross classes, they don't let you use the level 3s, but who cares, because they give you 3 little cards that do other things. So maybe the Steelcaster here, I like the fact that they now, one shield that you hold loses a hand icon, which means you can use a 2-handed weapon and a shield, which is pretty cool. And so I love the ideas of these. I think they're cool. I'm always going to be tempted to use them just because they feel like the same restrictions when you play D&D or one of these other role-playing games, and you have these, you can, do multi-classing, but you won't ever be the best at something. That's okay. I can still do 2 different things. So that's cool. The new monsters, great. Like I said before, I've always been glad that Descent has run out of the generic monsters. So now they're starting to use, more unique, cool things. Skulls coming around, or giant skeleton warriors. This is not necessarily your standard stuff, so that's good. More campaign, more tiles. I mean, really, though, do we need more tiles at this point? When I search through to find tiles for games now, it takes a long time. But still, a lot of fun. This is a pretty cool expansion. The extra classes, 4 new classes, already elevates it for me. 3 new monsters, more equipment. Come on now. Lots and lots of fun. Dice Tower Judgment, excellent!
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.